a Wikividi Documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Denis Healey. Denis Winston Healey, Baron Healey, was a British Labour Party politician who served as Secretary of State for Defence from 1964 to 1970, Chancellor of the Exchequer from 1974 to 1979 and Deputy Leader of the Labour Party from 1980 to 1983. He was a Member of Parliament for 40 years and was the last surviving member of the cabinet formed by Harold Wilson after the Labour Party's victory in the 1964 general election. A major figure in the party, he was twice defeated in bids for the party leadership. To the public at large, Healey became well known for his bushy eyebrows and his creative turns of phrase. Early life. Denis Winston Healey was born in Mottingham, Kent, but moved with his family to Keighley in the West Riding of Yorkshire at the age of 5. His parents were Winifred Mary and William Healey. His middle name honoured Winston Churchill. Healey had one brother, Terence Blair Healey, known as Terry. His father was an engineer who worked his way up from humble origins, studying at night school and eventually becoming head of a trade school. His paternal grandfather was a tailor from Enniskillen in Northern Ireland. Healey's family often summered in Scotland throughout his youth. Education. Healey received early education at Bradford Grammar School. In 1936 he won an exhibition scholarship to Balliol College, Oxford to read greats. He there became involved in Labour politics, although he was not active in the Oxford Union Society. Also while at Oxford, Healey joined the Communist Party in 1937 during the Great Purge, but left in 1940 after the fall of France. At Oxford, Healey met future Prime Minister Edward Heath, whom he succeeded as president of Balliol College Junior Common Room, and who became a lifelong friend and political rival. Healey achieved a double first degree, awarded in 1940. Second World War. After graduation, Healey served in the Second World War as a gunner in the Royal Artillery before being commissioned as a second lieutenant in April 1941. Serving with the Royal Engineers, he saw action in the North African Campaign, the Allied invasion of Sicily and the Italian Campaign, and was the military landing officer for the British Assault Brigade at Anzio in 1944. Healey became an MBE in 1945. He left the service with the rank of Major. He declined an offer to remain in the army, with the rank of Lieutenant Colonel, as part of the team researching the history of the Italian campaign under Colonel David Hunt. He also decided against taking up a senior scholarship at Balliol, which would have led to an academic career. Early career. Healey joined the Labour Party. Still in uniform, he gave a strongly left-wing speech to the Labour Party conference in 1945, declaring, "The upper classes in every country are selfish, depraved, dissolute and decadent," shortly before the general election in which he narrowly failed to win the Conservative-held seat of Pudsey and Otley, doubling the Labour vote, but losing by 1,651 votes. He became Secretary of the International Department of the Labour Party, becoming a foreign policy advisor to Labour leaders, and establishing contacts with socialists across Europe. He was a strong opponent of the Communist Party at home, and the Soviet Union internationally. From 1948 to 1960 he was a councillor for the Royal Institute of International Affairs and the International Institute for Strategic Studies from 1958 until 1961. He was a member of the Fabian Society Executive from 1954 until 1961. Healey was one of the leading players in the Königswinter Conference that was organised by Lilo Milchsack that was credited with helping to heal the bad memories after the end of the Second World War. Healey met Hans von Howarth, the ex-soldier Fridolin von Senger-Rundettelin, and future German President Richard von Weizsäcker and other leading German decision-makers. The conference also included other leading British decision-makers like Richard Crossman and the journalist Robin Day. MP. Healey was elected to the House of Commons as MP for Leeds South East at a by-election in February 1952, with a majority of 7,000 votes. Following constituency boundary changes, he was elected for Leeds East at the 1955 general election, holding that seat until he retired as an MP in 1992. He was a moderate on the right during the series of splits in the Labour Party in the 1950s. He was a supporter and friend of Hugh Gaitskell. He persuaded Gaitskell to temper his initial support for British military action in 1956, when the Suez Canal was seized by the Nasser regime in Egypt, resulting in the Suez Crisis. When Gaitskell died in 1963, he was horrified at the idea of Gaitskell's volatile deputy, George Brown, leading Labour, saying, "He was like immortal Jemima. When he was good he was very good, but when he was bad he was horrid." He voted for James Callaghan in the first ballot and Harold Wilson in the second. Healey thought Wilson would unite the Labour Party and lead it to victory in the next general election. He didn't think Brown was capable of doing either. He was appointed Shadow Secretary of State for Defence after the creation of the position in 1964. Defence Secretary. Following Labour's victory in the 1964 general election, Healey served as Secretary of State for Defence under Prime Minister Harold Wilson. He was responsible for 450,000 uniformed servicemen and women, and for 406,000 civil servants stationed around the globe. He was best known for his economizing, liquidating most of Britain's military role outside of Europe, and cancelling expensive projects. The cause was not a fiscal crisis, but rather a decision to shift money and priorities to the domestic budget and maintain a commitment to NATO. He cut defence expenditure, scrapping the carrier HMS Centaur and the reconstructed HMS Victorious in 1967, cancelling the proposed CVA-01 fleet carrier replacement and, just before Labour's defeat in 1970, downgrading HMS Hermes to a commando carrier. He cancelled the fifth planned Polaris submarine. He also cancelled the production of the Hawker Siddeley P.1154 and HS-681 aircraft and, more controversially, both the production of the BAC-TSR-2 and subsequent purchase of the F-111 in lieu of the scrapped Royal Navy carriers. Healey commented that to most ordinary seamen they were just floating slums and too vulnerable. He continued post-war Conservative government's reliance on strategic and tactical nuclear deterrence for the Navy, RAF and West Germany, and supported the sale of advanced arms abroad, including to regimes such as those in Iran, Libya, Chile, and apartheid South Africa, to which he supplied nuclear-capable Buccaneer S.2 strike bombers and approved a repeat order. This brought him into serious conflict with Wilson, who had, initially, also supported the policy. Healey later said he had made the wrong decision on selling arms to South Africa. In January 1968, a few weeks after the devaluation of the pound, Wilson and Healey announced that the two large British fleet carriers HMS Ark Royal and HMS Eagle would be scrapped in 1972. They also announced that British troops would be withdrawn in 1971 from major military bases in Southeast Asia, east of Aden, primarily in Malaysia and Singapore, as well as the Persian Gulf and the Maldives. However, the next Prime Minister Edward Heath sought to reverse this policy, and the forces were not fully withdrawn until 1976. Healey also authorized the expulsion of Chagossians from the Chagos archipelago and authorized the building of the United States military base at Diego Garcia. Following Labour's defeat in the 1970 general election, he became Shadow Defence Secretary, Shadow Chancellor and Chancellor. Healey was appointed Shadow Chancellor in April 1972 after Roy Jenkins resigned in a row over the European Economic Community. At the Labour Party conference on the 1st of October 1973, he said, "I warn you that there are going to be howls of anguish from those rich enough to pay over 75% on their last slice of earnings." In a speech in Lincoln on the 18th of February 1974, Healey went further, promising he would squeeze property speculators until the pips squeak. He alleged that Lord Currington, the Conservative Secretary of State for Energy, had made £10 million profit from selling agricultural land at prices 30 to 60 times as high as it would command as farming land. When accused by colleagues including Eric Heffer of putting Labour's chances of winning the next election in jeopardy through his tax proposals, Healey said the party and the country must face the consequences of Labour's policy of the redistribution of income and wealth. "That is what our policy is. The party must face the realities of it." Healey became Chancellor of the Exchequer in March 1974 after Labour returned to power as a minority government. His tenure is sometimes divided into Healey Mark I and Healey Mark II. The divide is marked by his decision, taken with Prime Minister James Callaghan, to seek an International Monetary Fund loan and submit the British economy to IMF supervision. The loan was negotiated and agreed in November and December 1976, and announced in Parliament on 15 December 1976. Within some parts of the Labour Party, the transition from Healey Mark I to Healey Mark II was regarded as a betrayal. Healey's policy of increasing benefits for the poor meant those earning over £4,000 per year would be taxed more heavily. His first budget saw increases in food subsidies, pensions and other benefits. When Harold Wilson stood down as leader of the Labour Party in 1976, Healey stood in the contest to elect the new leader. On the first ballot he came only fifth out of 6 candidates. However, he also contested the second round, coming third of the 3 candidates, but increasing his vote somewhat. Shadow Cabinet and Deputy Leader. Labour lost the general election to the Conservatives in May 1979, following the winter of discontent, during which Britain had faced a large number of strikes. On the 12th of June 1979, Healey was appointed a Companion of Honour. When Callaghan stood down as Labour leader in November 1980, Healey was the favourite to win the Labour Party leadership election, decided by Labour MPs, but lost to Michael Foot. He seems to have taken the support of the right of the party for granted. In one notable incident, Healey was reputed to have told the right-wing manifesto group they must vote for him as they had nowhere else to go. While Mike Thomas, the MP for Newcastle East, defected to the Social Democratic Party, he said he had been tempted to send Healey a telegram saying he had found somewhere else to go. 4 Labour MPs who defected to the SDP in early 1981 later said they voted for Foot in order to give the Labour Party an unelectable left-wing leader, thus helping their newly established party. Healey was returned unopposed as deputy leader to Foot, but the next year was challenged by Tony Benn under the new election system, one in which individual members and trades unions voted alongside sitting members of Parliament. The contest was seen as a battle for the soul of the Labour Party, and long debate over the summer of 1981 ended on the 27th of September with Healey winning by 50.4% to Benn's 49.6%. The narrowness of Healey's majority can be attributed to the Transport and General Workers' Union delegation to the Labour Party conference. Ignoring its members, who had shown 2-to-1 majority support for Healey, it cast the union's bloc vote for Benn. A significant factor in Benn's narrow loss, however, was the abstention of 20 MPs from the left-wing Tribune group, which split as a result. Healey attracted just enough support from other unions, constituency parties and Labour MPs to win. Healey was Shadow Foreign Secretary during most of the 1980s, a job he coveted. He believed Foot was initially too willing to support military action after the Falkland Islands were invaded by Argentina in April 1982. He accused Thatcher of glorying in slaughter, and had to withdraw the remark. Healey was retained in the Shadow Cabinet by Neil Kinnock, who succeeded Foot after the disastrous 1983 general election, when the Conservatives bolstered their majority and Labour suffered their worst general election result in decades. Healey had declined to run as leader to succeed Foot, as well as standing down as deputy leader. Retirement. His views on nuclear weapons conflicted with the unilateral nuclear disarmament policy of the Labour Party. After the 1987 general election, he retired from the Shadow Cabinet, and in 1992 stood down after 40 years as a Leeds MP. In that year he received a life peerage as Baron Healey of Riddlesden in the county of West Yorkshire. Healey was regarded by some, especially in the Labour Party, as the best Prime Minister we never had. He was a founding member of the Bilderberg Group. During an interview with Nick Clark on BBC Radio 4, Healey was the first Labour politician to publicly declare his wish for the Labour leadership to pass to Tony Blair in 1994, following the death of John Smith. Healey later became critical of Blair. He publicly opposed Blair's decision to use military force in Kosovo, Afghanistan and Iraq. In the spring of 2004, and again in 2005, he publicly called on Blair to stand down in favour of Gordon Brown. In July 2006 he argued, "Nuclear weapons are infinitely less important in our foreign policy than they were in the days of the Cold War, and I don't think we need nuclear weapons any longer." In March 2013, during an interview with The New Statesman, Healey said that if there was a referendum on British membership of the EU, he would vote to leave. In May, he further said, "I wouldn't object strongly to leaving the EU. The advantages of being members of the Union are not obvious. The disadvantages are very obvious. I can see the case for leaving. The case for leaving is stronger than for staying in." Following the death of Alan Campbell, Baron Campbell of Alloway in June 2013, Healey became the oldest sitting member of the House of Lords. Following the death of John Freeman on the 20th of December 2014, Healey became the surviving former MP with the earliest date of first election, and the second oldest surviving former MP, after Ronald Atkins. Public image. Healey's notably bushy eyebrows and piercing wit earned him a favourable reputation with the public. When the media were not present, his humour was equally caustic, but more risky. "These fallacies, pronounced fallacies, are rising up everywhere," he retorted, at a meeting of Leeds University Labour Society. The popular impressionist Mike Yarwood coined the catchphrase, "Silly Billy," and incorporated it into his shows as a supposed Healeyism. Healey had never said it until that point, but he adopted it and used it frequently. Healey's direct speech made enemies. At a meeting of the PLP, I accused Ian Mikado of being out of his tiny Chinese mind, a phrase of the comedian Hermione Gingold, with which I thought everyone was familiar. On the contrary, when it leaked to the press, the Chinese embassy took it as an insult to the People's Republic. The controversy may have contributed to a poor performance when he fought for the Labour leadership following Harold Wilson's resignation. He obtained 30 votes in the first ballot on the 25th of March, and 38 in the second on the 30th of March. He was eliminated from the election and supported James Callaghan in the final ballot on the 5th of April. Callaghan was elected as the new Prime Minister and leader of the Labour Party, and retained Healey as Chancellor. His long-serving deputy at the Treasury, Joel Barnett, in response to a remark by a third party that Denis Healey would sell his own grandmother, quipped, "No, he would get me to do it for him." On the 14th of June 1978, Healey likened being attacked by the mild-mannered Sir Geoffrey Howe in the House of Commons to being savaged by a dead sheep. Nevertheless, Howe appeared and paid warm tribute when Healey was featured on This Is Your Life in 1989. The two remained friends for many years, and Howe died only 6 days after Healey. Personal life and death. Healey married Edna May Edmonds on the 21st of December 1945, the two having met at Oxford University before the war. The couple had 3 children, one of whom is the broadcaster, writer and record producer Tim Healey. Edna Healey died on the 21st of July 2010, aged 92. They were married for over 60 years and lived in Alfreston, East Sussex. In 1987, Edna underwent an operation at a private hospital, this event drawing media attention as being seemingly at odds with Healey's pro-NHS beliefs. Challenged on the apparent inconsistency by the presenter Anne Diamond on TV Healey became critical and ended the interview. He then jabbed journalist Adam Bolton. Healey was an amateur photographer for many years, also enjoying music and painting and reading crime fiction. He sometimes played popular piano pieces at public events. In a May 2012 interview for the Daily Telegraph, Healey reported that he was swimming 20 lengths a day in his outdoor pool. Healey was interviewed in 2012 as part of the History of Parliament's Oral History project. After a short illness, Healey died in his sleep at his home in Alfreston, Sussex, on the 3rd of October 2015, at the age of 98. In 2017, his personal archives were deposited at the Bodleian Library. Brought to you by Wikividi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?